So we are going to learn how to do all of these things today. So now that we have kind of primed things here and we've set the stage for this, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into doing the building. So how this is going to work, I'm going to go over what one of the automations is, and then we're actually going to click over into HubSpot and look how each of these elements was built. So for this first one, labeling your target accounts and your ICP tiers. So we need to define our ICP tiers. That's a great question, Kyle. There are a lot of things that we can automate. So with that long list, here's what I would recommend. My recommendation is, since following this session, you're going to have on-screen tutorials that allow you to do each one of these things inside of your own HubSpot that we created over here at Digital Reach. And you're also going to have a quiz to test your knowledge, and there's going to be a recording of this. So my recommendation is to sit back and take notes on which things you think you can get done first, right? And consider what your actual resources are that are available on your marketing team so you know how quickly you can get through this. Don't set yourself up to feel like you have to build all of these things in 2 days. Maybe you can if you have the time, but just start to make a plan and start to, list out 3 things that you're going to do starting today or starting tomorrow to automate more aspects of your ABM campaigns inside of HubSpot. Okay. So for this very first one, the steps required, we have to define our ICP tiers. What do we mean by that? Well, what makes a tier 1 account for you? What makes a tier 2 account? What makes a tier 3 account? Is it the industry that they're in, the amount of revenue that they've done, how quickly their headcount has been growing over the last 90 days, 6 months? What is going to make you decide to prioritize an account, right? So define that. And then define what makes a target account to begin with. So we have our target accounts, that's the highest level of the hierarchy. Then we break it down into the ICP tiers. And then figure out, how are these target accounts coming into HubSpot? Are you pulling them from Sales Navigator and entering them that way? Are you using ZoomInfo or Bombora, where you have workflows set up to find new target accounts that match your ICP and then push those automatically into HubSpot? So figure out how your target accounts are getting into HubSpot. So the features we're going to use here, we're going to use the target account company property. We're going to use the ICP tier, which is also a company property. We will use workflows. So now let's go ahead and go live. We have a couple of different steps we're going to go through with this one. So let me go ahead and first things first, let's take a look at the target account overview. So what is this target account page that we're talking about? Well, this is what it looks like. You would see all of the accounts that had been labeled as target accounts, and you'd see how many contacts, open deals, open deal value, and when the last touch was. So we can go ahead and click this button here, and we can get an overview. How many contacts from that company have we been in contact with? How many internal stakeholders? How many deals? How many page views? This allows us to get a very quick view of how active these accounts are. So this isn't necessarily an automation, but I did want to show you where you could access this information and see how helpful it is. We can update the buying rules right here. We can, and we can get a holistic view of the entire account. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to look at. So the next thing we're going to look at is the workflow for labeling your target accounts. So this workflow is very simple. So this is a company-based workflow because we're enrolling companies, not individuals, okay? So first thing in the trigger, the company name is known. So we want to make sure that we actually have a company name. That's going to be one of our triggers. The other is going to be that the original source data for one contains any of ZoomInfo or Bombora, okay? So this workflow is set up so that anybody that's piping in from your system, that is your outside systems that are identifying target accounts and pushing them into HubSpot, so that we automatically label those. But let's say you do not have one of these tools. So what we can do here is actually just set our parameters for who would be a target account. So what are those parameters for a target account? Well, it could have to do with their annual revenue. So we could say annual revenue is greater than or equal to $20 million. So that would be one of them. And then the other one we want to make sure is that their number of employees is, let's say it is greater than or equal to 150. Okay. So let's say that all of our target accounts have at least 150 employees and at least 20 million in revenue. Then we'll label all of those as target accounts using this workflow. And then in the next workflow, we can actually break down and label their ICP tiers based on how much revenue they have over that 20 million mark, or how many employees over that 150 employee mark. And then the action you want to set is to set a property value. Okay, so you're going to look here on your workflows, and you're going to go to set a property value. It's going to be a company property. You're going to choose target account, and you're going to say to set that value to true. And that's all you have to do. I know that the same action is now there twice, but I wanted to go ahead and do that live. Okay, so now the next thing, how do we take those target accounts and then automate labeling them with the right ICP tiers so that we can get the right marketing mix and campaigns running? Because we might, for example, with the tier 1, because it's higher value, we might hand it off to sales sooner, or we might increase the ad frequency more when they're engaged because there's more value with that account. So depending on how you're setting things up, that is how we are, that's how you want to go ahead and build these workflows, depending on what your criteria is. So first thing we want to do, the enrollment trigger, is that target account is true. So then what we're going to do is we're going to have our branches. So in this example, branch 1, we set up that the number of employees is greater than or equal to 100. And I know this doesn't align with the last workflow, but this is what I had set up previously. And total revenue is greater than or equal to $5 million. Okay. So then we see anybody there is going to have the action of that branch. The next one, we have number of employees is greater than or equal to 50. Number of employees is 99 or less. And the revenue is between 2.5 million and 4.999 million. And then our third tier is anyone with less than 50 employees and anybody under 2.5 million. Okay. So setting those criteria is super easy. There are so many ways that we can set this, and we can even decide, do we want to include records where the total revenue is empty? So I'm going to go ahead and say no to that one, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and save here. And there we go. Now we can see the different branches where we can now set the ideal customer profile tier, right? So what we do is in this one, we will go and do the exact same thing we did last time, which is to set a property value. And in this case, we're going to choose, oops, it's not ICP, it's ideal customer profile tier. And then on this one, we're going to say that it is tier 1. Okay, so now that will automatically set that. That's going to allow all of your segmenting to take place. Everything that you want to do to personalize the marketing based on ICP tier, you're going to be able to do that based on this automation. Okay.